So, solving two-step equations. So if you have 4x plus 3 equals 23. So two-step equations, we were doing one step where you just either had to add, or you had to subtract, or you had to multiply, or divide. Now you're going to have to do two steps. So again, you're looking for some number that can go for x, or some unknown number that can go in for x that would make this true. So this side would need to be 23 in order to make this side 23. Well, in order to start solving these ones, if you can't just look, this one is probably a little bit easier than some of them. Some people might be able to see it just thinking about, okay, something plus 3 equals 23. So 20, well, 4 times what equals 20. Some people can think of that, most people can't. So I always circle the term with the variable. So I want to circle this because I need to get this by itself. So in order to do that, I need to do the opposite or inverse of add 3. Because if we're trying to work backwards to find what number, we need to do the opposite. So the opposite of add 3 would be to subtract 3 and subtract 3. 23 minus 3 would be 20. So 4x equals 20. Now remember, when a number and a variable are right next to each other like that, that means multiply. So the inverse of multiply is divide. So if it's 4 times x, I need to do the opposite of that to figure out this number. So the opposite of multiply by 4 would be to divide by 4. So x equals 20 divided by 4 is 5. So x would equal 5. And I want you to start getting in the habit of checking your answer to see if it's correct. And that's purple. You just can't really see that it's purple. Let me see if this purple looks more like purple. So then I'm going to plug 5 in. So I'm going to do 4 times 5, or you can write it with the parentheses, plus 3 equals 23. Okay. Order of operations, you have to multiply first. So 4 times 5 is 20. 20 plus 3 is 23. 23 equals 23. So I did it correctly. Okay. Let's go to the next one. All right. Now, this one, I'm going to just go ahead and read it. Negative 5 minus 6x equals 25. So if you look at that, the negative 5 is out front, minus 6x. Now, one place that I see people get mixed up, or that I've seen people needing help on, is that this negative 5, they get confused on what they need to do with it. So I'm going to circle my variable, just like I did up here, but I'm going to circle this variable, and I have to include the sign, because if I don't, I'm going to forget that it was a negative 6 and I might miss it somewhere. So now I have negative 5 minus 6x. We are trying to get this to cancel. If you cannot think about, or if it's hard for you to think about what the opposite of a negative 5 is, just think about what would make it cancel. Well, if I owe you $5, how would I get that to 0? I would have to give you $5. The opposite of a negative is a positive when you're adding and subtracting. See how there's a subtraction sign right after it? So then negative 5 plus 5 cancels, which is what we want. And then 25 plus 5 is 30. So the negative 6x equals 30. Now, people then try to do the same thing here as they did here. But notice there's not an addition subtraction sign between those. This would be multiplying. A negative 6 times x. So the opposite of multiply is to divide. And if you think about this, if I just divided it by a 6, so if I had negative 6, remember to type the negative, you hit this button down here, not that one. So I would do negative 6, and if I just divided it by 6, I would have negative 1. I don't want negative 1x, I just want a single x. So negative 6 divided by negative 6, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so that cancels out. And those both become positive. And then divide by a negative 6. So then x equals 30 divided by negative 6. 30 divided by negative 6. A positive divided by a negative is a negative. If the signs are different when you're multiplying or dividing, it's a negative. So negative 5. Okay. I'm going to check my answer. So negative 5 minus 6, negative 5 equals 25. Okay, do the multiplying and dividing first. So I have negative 5 minus minus 6 times negative 5. So I have to do this part first. Negative 6 minus 5, negative 6 parentheses, negative 5. Sorry, you couldn't even see it. Negative 6 parentheses, negative 5 is 30. Now, since this 30 is positive, since it's a negative times a negative, you have to make sure to keep that positive right there. Okay, and then negative 5 plus 30, negative 5 plus 30 is 25. 25 equals 25. Or watch this, I can type this entire thing in right here. So I can do negative 5 minus 6 minus 5 is 25. Okay, last example. So again, we're trying to get the x, if we're trying to find the x, I always circle the term with x and get that by itself. So I need to get this by itself. So right now it's a minus 6. What's the opposite of subtract 6? Add 6. Add 6. Negative 7 plus 6 is negative 1 equals x divided by 3. Then we have x divided by 3, so you need to do the opposite of divide by 3. Think about whenever we were doing, when we were simplifying. 3 divided by 3 cancels and is 1. So you have to make sure that you multiply by 3 so that the 3 and the 3 cancel. 3 divided by 3 cancels. Or if you're dividing by 3 and you multiply by 3, it would cancel. So I need to make sure to multiply by 3 over here. 3 times negative 1 would be negative 3 equals x. Check your work, or check your answer. negative 7 equals negative 3 divided by 3 minus 6. Do this part first. What's a negative divided by a positive? So if the signs are different, it's a negative. 3 divided by 3 is 1. Then we have minus 6. Negative 1 minus 6. If I owe you $1 and I owe you $6, I owe you 7. And I owe you 7. So that's right. Do not let, and I should have said this whenever I started this problem, don't let the fact that this right here is out of order from what these ones up here are. So you're still looking for the variable and you're going to get it by itself. I see a lot of people try to move this to that side rather than getting this off of the side with the x. That's why I circle this, because this side of the equation, remember it's an equation because there's an equal sign, this side of the equation is where the x is at, and it has the minus 6. So the opposite of subtract 6 is to add 6. And I would have to do it to this side. You always have to move to the other side of the equation. And what you do to one side, you have to do to both sides. So that's solving equations. Make sure you check your answers.